It started in the city of Atlanta, where glass towers touched the clouds and money talked louder than mercy. Down on the south side, in a small neighborhood with cracked sidewalks and porch lights that flickered like broken promises, lived a boy named Micah Johnson. He was just 10 years old, skin the color of rich earth, eyes deep and curious, and a smile that could calm storms. Micah had a gift. Not the kind you brag about in school, not the kind you can post on TikTok for views. This was different, something spiritual, mysterious. His grandmother called it the touch. Ever since he was little, she said his hands carried warmth that could ease pain. He didn't understand it. He just knew when people hurt, he could somehow make it better. Now, up in Buckhead, high above the noise and heat, lived Charles Whitmore, a white billionaire who owned half the tech companies that ran the city. He was powerful, respected, feared even. But behind the walls of his mansion was a silence that money couldn't buy its way out of. His only son, Eli, had been born with a rare heart disease. Doctors said he wouldn't make it to 13. Eli was 12. Charles had hired the best specialists, flown in surgeons from Switzerland, prayed in churches he didn't even believe in, but nothing worked. His wife had passed away 3 years earlier, and Eli was all he had left. Losing him would destroy what little soul the man had left. Now here's where the world starts to twist. One humid afternoon, Micah's grandmother was cleaning houses in the rich part of town the Whitmore estate included. She'd been working there for nearly a decade, always polite, always invisible. That day, she brought Micah along because school was closed and she couldn't leave him home alone. When they arrived, Eli was lying on a hospital bed set up in the living room, his chest rising shallow, skin pale like moonlight. Machines beeped in rhythm, the sound of a fading heartbeat wrapped in wires and hope. "Don't touch anything, Micah," his grandma whispered as she started dusting the marble counters. But Eli noticed the boy. "Hey, you like video games?" His voice came weak, almost trembling. Micah looked around, nervous. "Yeah, sometimes." The billionaire's son gave a small smile. "Wanna play? I can't move much, but I can still use the controller." And so they played. Two boys from two different worlds, one with nothing but kindness, the other with everything but time. They laughed. They talked. For a brief hour, sickness forgot its job. That's when Charles Whitmore walked in. He froze at the sight, his dying son laughing with a janitor's boy. "What is this?" his voice thundered. Micah's grandma nearly dropped her duster. "Sir, I'm so sorry. He didn't mean no harm." "Get him out!" Charles shouted. "This isn't a daycare for—" He stopped himself before saying the word that burned in his mouth. Micah looked down, gripping his small hands together. "I didn't mean to—" "Leave!" Charles barked. Eli coughed, trying to sit up. "Dad, please, he's my friend." "Enough, Eli! You need rest, not street kids." Micah's grandma took him by the hand. "Come on, baby," she whispered through tears. But as they turned to leave, Eli suddenly screamed. His heart monitor spiked. Nurses rushed in. Charles's face drained white. "Not again! Not now!" Micah watched, frozen. As Eli gasped for air, instinct took over. He broke free from his grandma, ran to the bedside, and pressed his tiny hand on Eli's chest. The room went silent. For a moment, everything slowed, the beeping steadied, the boy's breathing calmed. Eli opened his eyes, color slowly returning to his face. Charles stared in disbelief. "What did you just do?" Micah backed away, frightened. I just didn't want him to die." Charles grabbed the nurse. "What's happening?" She checked the monitor, eyes wide. "Sir, his vitals are stabilizing. This is impossible." Micah's grandmother pulled him close. "Sir, please, we didn't mean—" "Wait," Charles interrupted, his voice trembling. "Do that again." Micah shook his head. "I don't know how. It just happens sometimes." "Please," Charles said, desperation replacing anger. "If you can help him, I'll pay anything." That's when Micah's grandma spoke softly. "You can't buy what God gives freely, Mr. Whitmore." Charles looked at her, this woman who scrubbed his floors and kept his secrets, and for the first time in years, humility touched his face. Over the next few days, Micah kept visiting, at first secretly, then with the billionaire's permission. Each time he laid his hands on Eli's chest, the boy's strength grew. His smile returned. He started sitting up, walking small steps, laughing again. Doctors couldn't explain it. "It's like his heart's regenerating," one said. "We've never seen anything like this." News of the miracle boy began to spread through the hospital staff, the community, the city. But Charles wasn't ready for that kind of attention. He had his reputation to protect. A black child healing his white billionaire son didn't fit the narrative he wanted the world to see. So one evening, as the sunset bled orange over the Whitmore mansion, Charles pulled Micah's grandmother aside. "I'll take care of you," he said. "I'll buy you a new home, pay for his education, everything. But you can't tell anyone what he's done. Not a soul." She looked at him, disbelief hardening into sorrow. "So you still don't see it, do you?" "See what?" he asked. "That God used the least of these to touch your heart and your son's." Charles clenched his jaw. "You don't understand the world I live in." She nodded slowly. "Maybe that's the problem." Later that night, Micah overheard everything. He sat in Eli's room, quiet, thinking. "Why does your dad hate me?" he finally asked. Eli looked down. "He doesn't hate you. He just doesn't know how to love anyone anymore." Micah placed a hand over his own heart. "Love's the only thing that ever heals, though." The next morning, things took a turn. A headline broke on the local news. "Mysterious recovery of billionaire son. Doctors stunned." Reporters swarmed the gates. Someone had leaked it. Cameras flashed, voices shouted. Charles's empire was suddenly under the spotlight, and the secret he'd tried to bury began to surface. He stormed through the house, furious, searching for someone to blame. "Who told them?" he roared. But no one answered. Outside, the boy who had brought life back to his son stood by the gate, his small hands clenched, eyes steady. Micah whispered to himself, "Maybe the world needs to see what love looks like." And as Charles turned toward him, face twisted in rage and fear, something unexpected happened. Eli collapsed once more, his heart monitor screaming. Charles froze. Micah ran forward again, but this time when he touched Eli's chest, nothing happened. The warmth was gone, and right there, in front of cameras, flashing lights, and a nation watching everything Charles thought he knew about power, faith, and love began to unravel. Sirens wailed. Reporters shouted. Cameras blinked like lightning across the Whitmore mansion lawn. And in the middle of it all, Eli lay still, pale, lifeless. Micah's small hand trembled on the boy's chest, his eyes wide with fear. "Come on, Eli," Micah whispered, voice cracking. "Come on, breathe." Charles Whitmore pushed through the crowd, panic breaking his polished composure. "Move! Get out of the way!" He fell to his knees beside his son, shouting for paramedics. "Do something! He was fine! He was fine!" But the medics just exchanged looks. One shook his head. "We've got no pulse." And, for the first time in years, the billionaire cried raw, broken sobs that no amount of money could silence. The crowd went quiet. The cameras lowered. Micah stood frozen. He felt it, something inside him was blocked. The warmth that once flowed through his hands was gone, like a candle snuffed out. "Please," he whispered again. "Please, God, don't let him die." Charles turned on him, eyes red, voice shaking. "What did you do to him?" Micah stumbled back. I didn't do nothing. I tried to help." "Help?" Charles spat. "You think this is help? You're some kind of trick. Some circus act my staff let in here." "Sir." Micah's grandmother stepped forward, tears streaking her face. "You know that's not true." "Get them out of my house," Charles roared. "Both of them, before I call the police." Micah tried to speak, but his throat burned with grief. His grandma took his hand, pulling him away as guards closed in. Behind them, Charles's cries echoed through the marble halls. They walked out into the flashing lights, the chaos, the questions. The world now knew their faces, the small black boy who healed a billionaire's son, and who maybe, just maybe, failed to keep him alive. The next morning, the story was everywhere. Miracle, child or hoax. Read one headline. Black boy's healing touched truth or tragedy. Read another. The Whitmore PR team released a statement calling the rumors unverified and emotionally exploitative. They denied everything, said Eli's improvement was a result of advanced medical intervention, and that no outside influence played a role. But the people had seen the video someone had captured that first moment weeks ago when Micah's hand steadied the dying boy's heart. It spread online like wildfire. Black churches called it divine. Skeptics called it superstition. The country was split in two. Meanwhile, Micah hadn't spoken in days. He just sat by his grandma's window, staring at the rain. "It's gone," he whispered one night. "The light's gone." She looked at him, heart heavy. "Baby, gifts like yours don't vanish. Sometimes God hides them until your heart's ready again." "It's due in the stet." Micah shook his head. "I failed him. Maybe I wasn't supposed to have it in the first place, but something inside him wouldn't rest. Something kept whispering, Eli's not gone. Not yet." Across town, the billionaire sat in his mansion, shattered. He hadn't shaved in days. The house felt like a tomb. Eli's body was still in the hospital, hooked to machines keeping him alive just long enough for the press to move on. But Charles couldn't sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Micah's face, the innocence, the pain, the fear, and a memory kept replaying. That moment when Eli's heartbeat steadied under the boy's touch. Late one night, a knock echoed through the mansion. Charles opened the door to find Reverend Carter, the pastor from a small black church on the south side. "Mr. Whitmore," he said softly, "I believe the Lord's not finished with your boy yet." Charles frowned. "Who sent you?" The pastor smiled. "Faith did." He stepped inside, handed Charles a small folded note. The handwriting was shaky, childish, but it was Micah's. It read, "I'm sorry. I think God wants me to try again." Charles felt something shift. Fear, pride, guilt, all clashing at once. "No," he whispered. "I can't let that boy near my son again. He's been through enough." The pastor nodded slowly. "Maybe so, but sometimes healing doesn't come until the one who's broken admits he needs it." Charles turned away, his voice cracking. "You don't understand. I already lost my wife. I can't lose him too." Reverend Carter placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "Then maybe it's time to stop holding on with your hands and start holding on with your heart." Nader. Horost. The next morning, Micah woke up to a knock at his own door. When his grandmother opened it, there stood a man in a gray suit holding an envelope. Inside was a simple message. "If you still believe, come tonight. C.W." Micah's heart started to race. "Grandma," he whispered. "He wants me to come back." She hesitated. "Baby, this could be a trap." Micah nodded. "I know, but what if it's not?" That night, under a sky thick with thunder, a black SUV rolled through the rain-soaked streets, carrying one small boy back toward the mansion where everything began. The guards didn't stop him this time. Charles met him at the door, his face tired, eyes hollow. "He's still hanging on," he said quietly. "Barely." They walked through the long, silent hallways to Eli's room. Machines beeped faintly. The air smelled of medicine and grief. Micah stepped forward, his hands trembling. "I don't know if I can do it again," he whispered. Charles nodded. "Then don't try to. Just be here." Micah closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and laid his hands gently on Eli's chest. Nothing happened. No warmth, no hum, just silence. He began to cry. "God, please, if you ever gave me this gift, give it back now. Don't let him go." And then just for a second, the lights flickered. The monitors spiked. Eli's fingers twitched. Charles gasped. "Wait, what was that?" Micah's eyes opened wide. "He's still here." The billionaire dropped to his knees, tears mixing with disbelief. "Do whatever you need. Just save my boy." Micah nodded, focused. whispering a prayer his grandma had taught him. Slow, steady, full of faith. Then suddenly, his hand jerked back. Something unseen, powerful, ran through him. The air in the room changed heavy, electric. Eli's chest began to rise and fall again, his heart monitor steadying into rhythm. Charles covered his mouth, sobbing. "Oh my God, it's real." Micah collapsed to the floor, drained, shaking. "It's not me," he whispered. "It's never been me." Charles held his son's hand, looking up at the boy who had done the impossible. "Micah, how do I thank you?" Micah just smiled weakly. "Just be kind, that's all." As doctors rushed in, shouting orders in disbelief, Charles stepped back, his eyes opened to a truth deeper than wealth. But outside, through the thunder and flashing lights, a dark car sat waiting. Inside it, a man in a black suit watched the window closely. He pulled out his phone and spoke into it quietly. "The boy's done it again. We need to bring him in before word spreads further." A pause, then a voice on the other end said coldly, "Understood. Don't let him leave that house." And as the rain poured harder, Micah looked out the window, feeling a chill run through him, unaware that his greatest test was only just beginning. The storm outside hadn't stopped since that night. Rain fell like the sky itself was crying, washing over the Whitmore mansion as if trying to cleanse it of every lie and sin it had ever seen. Inside, Eli was alive. His chest rose steady, his pulse strong. Doctors called it a medical anomaly. Charles called it a miracle. And Micah, well, Micah called it God. But something was off. The boy could feel it in his bones, the same strange, heavy pressure that came right before everything went wrong. The mansion was too quiet, too watchful. He sat by Eli's bedside, whispering stories from home, stories his grandma used to tell when the power went out and the city lights faded away. Eli laughed weakly, his color slowly returning. "You talk like you're 80 years old," he teased. Micah grinned. "Grandma says old souls come in young bodies." "Then you must be ancient," Eli chuckled. They laughed, soft and real, the kind of laughter that heals more than medicine. But as they talked, Micah noticed something, a red light blinking faintly in the corner of the room. A camera, hidden, watching. He frowned. "Eli, did your dad put cameras in here?" Eli blinked. "Cameras? No, I don't think so." But before Micah could look closer, the door opened. Charles stepped in, holding a tray of food. "You boys hungry?" His voice was calm, but his eyes were tired, haunted. Micah nodded politely. "Thank you, sir." Charles set the tray down and sat beside his son. "Doctors say your heart's stronger than they've ever seen. You'll be running around in no time." Eli smiled. "Because of Micah." Charles's jaw tightened slightly. "Yes, because of Micah." There was a silence. Heavy. Awkward. Then Charles sighed. "Micah, I owe you everything. But there are people, powerful people, who are very interested in what you can do. They'll come looking." Micah's heart sank. "Why?" "Because miracles scare the powerful," Charles said quietly. "They can't control them." Before anyone could say another word, thunder cracked, shaking the windows. The lights flickered again, and then from the hallway a loud crash. Charles stood. "Stay here." He opened the door, stepping into the dark corridor. The sound of boots echoed. Shadows moved fast. Men in black suits, government, private security, maybe both, swept through the house like a silent flood. "Sir?" one of them said coldly. "We're here for the boy." Charles froze. "You're not taking him." The man stepped closer. "Mr. Whitmore, we have authorization. You know what this is, national security." "National security?" Charles spat. "He's a child." The man's eyes were ice. "He's something more than that." Charles clenched his fists. "He saved my son. You'll have to go through me first." The man gave a small, cruel smile. "Then that can be arranged." Back in the room, Micah could hear the argument. He could feel the danger crawling closer. "Eli?" he whispered. "They're here for me." Eli's eyes went wide. "What do we do?" Micah looked at the window. Rain still poured hard. but it was their only way out. We run. Eli shook his head weakly. I can't, my heart. Micah grabbed his hand. You can. God didn't heal you for nothing. They moved fast, Micah helping Eli out of bed, steadying his steps. They reached the window just as footsteps thundered down the hall. Micah! Charles's voice rang out. Go! Get him out! Micah turned back, shocked. Charles was standing between the men in suits and the bedroom, arms spread. You'll have to kill me before you touch that boy. One of the men raised a stun gun.
Stand down, sir.
Charles didn't move. He's a child. Micah didn't wait to see what happened next. He and Eli climbed out onto the balcony, rain pelting their faces. Below, the garden was a blur of mud and lightning. Hold on, Micah said, helping Eli over the railing. They dropped softly, painfully into the wet grass. Eli groaned, clutching his chest. You okay? Micah whispered. Eli nodded weakly. Go, before they find us. They ran through the darkness, slipping between trees, their hearts pounding. Behind them, shouts echoed. Flashlights cut through the rain. Split up! Someone yelled. Micah's grandma had always told him, when the world turns against you, follow the light God puts in your path. But tonight, there was no light, only thunder and fear. He led Eli toward the back gate, the one the gardeners used. It was locked, but Micah pressed his hand against the latch, whispered a prayer, and it clicked open like it was waiting for him. They slipped out into the night, into the world beyond money, power, and miracles. By dawn, they had made it to the south side. Micah's grandma opened her door, gasping when she saw them soaked and shaking. Lord, have mercy. What happened? They're after him, Micah said, pointing at Eli. We can't go back. She didn't ask questions. She just nodded and wrapped them both in blankets. You boys rest. God'll show us the next step. But Charles wasn't resting. Back in the mansion, chaos reigned. Agents searched every room. The man in black slammed a fist against the wall. Find them. Charles stood quietly, a bruise forming on his jaw where one of the men had hit him. You'll never find them, he said coldly. Not if I can help it. The man turned. You're protecting something you don't understand. Charles looked him dead in the eye. No. I'm protecting someone who finally taught me what humanity is, the agent sneered. We'll see how long that lasts. And with that, he left, vanishing into the storm. Later that night, Charles sat alone in Eli's empty room. On the desk, he found something Micah's small wooden cross necklace left behind. He picked it up, tears filling his eyes. God, he whispered, if you're real, if you gave that boy what I think you did, then help me protect him. Help me make this right. And somewhere, miles away, in a small church basement where the boys were hiding, Micah stirred from sleep, clutching his chest. Eli leaned over. You okay? Micah's voice was soft. Something's coming. Something bad. Outside, headlights flickered in the distance. 3 black SUVs rolling slow through the rain, stopping 1 block away. And in the front seat of the lead car, the man in black spoke into his radio. Target located. Move in on my signal. The radio crackled. Then a voice replied low, commanding, familiar. Do not harm the boy. Bring him to me alive. The man frowned. Understood, Senator. The night was still. Too still. The kind of silence that comes before everything changes. The rain had stopped, leaving the streets of South Atlanta slick with reflection, every puddle catching the faint glow of distant streetlights. Inside the small church basement, Micah sat with his hands clasped tight, whispering under his breath. Eli lay on a cot nearby, pale but breathing steady. His heart, once broken, once healed, now beat with quiet strength. Micah's grandma hummed an old hymn in the corner, rocking back and forth. When God moves, baby, she said softly, the devil trembles. That's how you know something big's about to happen. But outside, darkness moved too. 3 black SUVs rolled to a stop at the end of the block. Doors opened. Boots hit pavement. Men in suits, earpieces flashing, spread like shadows. The man in black The one who'd hunted Micah since the night at the mansion adjusted his coat and spoke into his mic. "Move in, quietly." Inside, Micah froze. He felt it before he heard it, the same heavy energy from before, crawling up his spine. "They're here," he whispered. Eli sat up weakly. "Who?" "The men who want to take me." Grandma stood, her old bones trembling, but her eyes blazing. "Then they'll have to walk through fire to get to you." A crash wood splintering, boots pounding. The church doors burst open. Flashlights cut through the dim basement light. "Federal authority," a voice shouted. "Step away from the boy!" Grandma stepped forward, holding out her hand. "You best lower those guns in God's house." The man in black ignored her. "Micah Johnson, you're coming with us. You've been classified as a national asset. You'll be taken for evaluation." "Evaluation?" Grandma spat. "He's a child." "Ma'am," he said coldly, "you don't understand what this boy is." Micah's voice cut through the chaos, small but steady. "I'm not what you think I am. I'm just someone who believes." The man frowned. "You think belief does this?" He pointed at Eli. "You think faith rewrites biology? This is something else, something we can study, replicate, use." Micah shook his head slowly. "That's the problem. You keep trying to use what's meant to be shared." He took a step forward. Grandma gasped. "Micah, don't!" The man in black raised his hand. "Stay back, boy." But Micah kept walking small, soaked, fearless, his eyes locked on the man's. "You can take me, but know this: God don't live in labs, and power without love destroys everything it touches." Something in the man's face flickered a hesitation, a memory, a moment of lost humanity. But before he could speak, another voice echoed from the church doors. "Enough!" Everyone turned. Charles Whitmore stood there, soaked from the rain, breathless. Behind him, 2 local reporters and Reverend Carter. Cameras rolled. The truth was walking into the light. Charles looked the agent dead in the eye. "If you take him, you'll have to explain why a billionaire's son is alive because of a boy you're calling a threat." The man in black tensed. "You don't know what you're doing. It is approvely Brown, and half Dakaring and friend." Charles stepped forward, his voice trembling but sure. "For once in my life, I do." He turned to the cameras. "This boy saved my son, not with science, not with magic, but with love, faith, and compassion. And if that scares the world, then maybe the world needs to be scared." The church fell silent except for the hum of the cameras. Micah felt his knees weaken. Eli rushed to him, catching his hand. "You did it," he whispered. The agents looked at one another, uncertain. The man in black lowered his weapon slowly. "This isn't over," he muttered. Charles nodded. "No, it's just beginning." One by one, the agents backed away. The sound of their boots faded into the night. The cameras stayed rolling, capturing every tear, every heartbeat, every ounce of truth. When it was all over, Charles knelt beside Micah. "You gave me back my son. I can never repay that." Micah smiled faintly. "Then don't try. Just help people, the way you wish someone had helped you." Charles nodded, eyes glassy. "I will." Eli gripped Micah's hand tighter. "You're my brother now." Micah grinned. "Always." As dawn broke, the sky turned gold over the city. The story spread everywhere. Little boy heals billionaire's son, with faith, not science. Some called it a miracle, others called it a myth. But for the people who were there, the ones who felt the shift in that room, it didn't matter what the world believed. They'd seen love bring life back from death. Weeks passed. Eli grew stronger, running, laughing, living the life he was never supposed to have. Charles used his power and wealth to build new hospitals, fund community programs, and protect the boy who changed everything. He visited the South Side often, sitting on that old porch with Micah's grandma, sipping sweet tea and talking about grace. One evening, Micah stood outside that same church, watching the sunset. A gentle breeze brushed his face. He looked at his hands, the ones that had healed, the ones that had been hunted, and whispered, "Thank you." Grandma stepped beside him. "You feel that peace?" Micah nodded. Yeah, she smiled. That's how you know your purpose ain't about power. It's about people. He looked up at the sky, glowing orange and pink, and said softly, then I think I found mine. And somewhere deep in the city, in a boardroom where the rich and powerful whispered, someone replayed footage from that night, the boy's face glowing with unexplainable light. They wanted to understand it, control it, profit from it. But as they argued, the screen flickered and went black. No signal, no trace, just silence. And a voice, faint but clear, whispered through the static. You can't capture what was never yours. Moral of the story: real power doesn't come from wealth, status, or science. It comes from compassion. It comes from the courage to see humanity in the people the world overlooks. Micah's gift wasn't just healing hearts, it was reminding us that love is still the strongest force on earth. And sometimes, the smallest hands hold the mightiest miracles. Stories like this remind us that compassion, faith, and understanding can bridge even the widest divides. But I want to hear from you. What lesson did you take from this story? Do you believe kindness can truly change the course of someone's life? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story moved you, make sure to subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell, and stay tuned for more powerful stories that inspire reflection, unity, and hope. Thank you for watching, and remember, every act of compassion leaves a lasting light in this world.